There is a specific kind of silence that lives in a house where someone is always exhausted. It isn't a peaceful silence, it is heavy, smelling of stale coffee, cold morning air, and old grease. For 20 years, that was the atmosphere David grew up in. To him, his father was a ghost, a man who slept through his son's birthdays and nodded off during graduation ceremonies. In his youthful arrogance, David saw his father as a man without ambition, someone who had simply given up on life and settled for the shadows. He promised himself he would never be like him, never realizing that he wasn't even half the man his father was. One Tuesday, David decided to follow the man he had grown to resent, not out of love, but out of a bitter curiosity. He wanted to see where the man he considered lazy spent his hours. He followed the rusted truck through the fog of the valley, past the manicured offices and the parks, until it pulled into the loading bay of a commercial bakery at 4 a.m. David watched through a frosted window for 3 hours as his father mopped floors and lifted 50-pound bags of flour, his face glistening with sweat despite the morning chill. When the bakery staff arrived to start their day, David's father didn't head home for rest. Instead, he drove to a dusty construction site and spent his lunch hour hauling scrap metal in the sun. Then, as the evening began to settle, he drove to the local community college. Not to attend a class, but to scrub the chemistry labs. 3 jobs, 16 hours, and not a single word of the struggle ever crossed his lips when he sat down for his meager dinner. The question burned in David's chest. Why? They didn't live in a mansion. They didn't drive new cars. David's mother had passed away years ago, and he began to wonder if his father was chasing a ghost or paying off some secret, shameful debt. That night, feeling like a stranger in his own home, David searched his father's old roll-top desk. His heart hammered against his ribs as he discovered a small silver key hidden inside the spine of a worn-out Bible. He opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a thick, weathered manila envelope. Inside wasn't a mountain of debt or gambling stubs. It was a meticulous stack of papers and a small velvet box. David spread the papers on the floor and felt the air leave his lungs. They were receipts for medical school funds, tuition deposits, and a student loan for David, paid in full. The first deposit had been made the very month David's mother had died. His father hadn't just been working, he had been building a fortress around his son's future. He knew David dreamed of becoming a doctor, a dream that cost more than a janitor could ever earn. But the father didn't care about the difficulty. He only cared about the boy. David opened the velvet box to find a gold watch, engraved with the words, "For the doctor, my son will become. Don't look back." In that moment, the weight of the truth crashed down. Every time David had rolled his eyes at his father's fatigue, the old man was literally giving away his joints, his sleep, and his strength. Every hour the father spent in the dark was an hour of light he was buying for his son. When the father returned home that night, he found David sitting on the floor, surrounded by the evidence of a lifetime of sacrifice. The father stopped in the doorway, his body bent with age and toil, but he managed a small, weary smile. No words were exchanged, for none were large enough to fill the room. David simply looked at his father's hands, those stained, cracked, beautiful hands. The older man walked over, placed a heavy palm on his son's head, and whispered, "I didn't want you to see the struggle. I only wanted you to see the view from the top. That is the silent language of a father's love. It doesn't shout, it doesn't brag. It just works until the mission is complete. Wisdom is rarely found in grand speeches, More often, it is found in the calloused palms of those who love us most. If you still have the chance to thank someone who sacrificed in silence for you, do it today. Because their greatest reward isn't the money they saved. It is the person you have become. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs a reminder of the quiet heroes among us. Tell us about the silent sacrifices in your own life in the comments below. This is Echoes of Grace. Be the light. Share the love. We will see you in the next story.